Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation between one of our CSEC students, Faith Flavius, and the Registrar of CXC, Dr. Wayne Wesley. I am Dr. Laura Bristol, Program Manager, Human Resource Development at the CARICOM Secretariat. Good morning, Wayne, and good morning, Faith, and good morning, Talia. Wayne, we know that we have been engaged significantly with a response to COVID-19 as the pandemic has been running through the global landscape as an invisible enemy that has been having significant impact on the way in which we live and relate with each other. Education has not escaped, and it has had significant impact on educational delivery, with all our schools in the Caribbean region being closed and schools implementing online delivery as part of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Tell us a little bit about the ways in which CXC has suggested proposals to address regional assessments, which obviously have also been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you very much, Laurette, and good day to your listeners and viewers who will be actually watching this program. CXC takes note of the COVID-19 impact on the region, and in particular the education system. And in recognition of the challenges caused by COVID-19, CXC would have convened several meetings rather, with the representatives from the Ministries of Education to discuss the administration of the regional examinations. This consultation continues widely across the region, and we'll continue to have these consultations until we reach a regional consensus as to how the examinations will be administered. Critical in making this decision will be the heads of government across the region, who will have to make some pronouncement on how the examinations are administered throughout the region. One would appreciate that because of the regional nature of these examinations, we cannot necessarily focus only on particular national issues, but we have to take that within the context of what is happening regionally. And accordingly, the heads of government would have to meet in order to come to some regional consensus as to how these examinations will be administered. To this end, the Council would have proposed a revised examination strategy to yield valid grades, assess critical competencies, and minimize the disruption to the education system during these unprecedented times.
Thank you for that, Wayne. And of course, Wayne, you know, in the response that CXC has proposed, one of the key stakeholders who have obviously been impacted by this are our CSEC students and our CAPE students in the region. And
Yes.
to that end, we have Faith here with us, and Faith is a CSEC student, a student of Bishop's Anstey High School in Port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago. And Faith has a number of questions that she would like to ask CXC, and I hope that this would be a fantastic engagement between you and Faith. You would see with Faith is her mother, Talia, and of course, Talia as a parent would also have concerns about the ways in which this reality is also impacting upon the future goal planning for her daughter and other students within the Caribbean. So of course, now I'll turn the conversation over to Faith. And Faith, this is a conversation that comes really to many students in our region. You get the chance to ask the Registrar of CXC a number of questions that he will engage with you on. So Faith, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. So I think this is the most anticipated question, but so if exams were to take place at a later date, for example, September 2020 or January 2021, will the overall grade still solely comprise of the multiple choice and the SBA, or will we return to the original format?
Okay, thank you very much. And let me say a pleasant good morning to you, and trust that you are keeping well and safe. Is happy to see your mother beside you, giving you the kind of support that is needed at this time. I am trusting that students across the region are also receiving the kind of moral support from their parents as your mother is doing right now. I'm happy to see that you're bright and bubbly and have the kind of energy at this time, given what is happening with COVID-19 across the region. And I look forward to our interaction just now. The question you have asked is a very pertinent one, and one that would have been on the minds of many students across the region. Certainly, because of the uncertainty surrounding COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the respective national protocols in effect, it is very difficult at this time to make any definitive statement until we arrive at some consensus regionally by the respective governments. That being said, however, having examined the situation, CXC would have proposed a mechanism that is best suited for administration at this time, balancing several issues of concern. For one, in arriving at this decision, one has to look at what is happening in respect to higher education and how persons would need to matriculate to higher education. One will also have to take into consideration how best to efficiently execute our examinations in a way that will not disenfranchise anyone. And thirdly, we'll have to also ensure that whatever is being administered, it is still treating with the essential skills and competencies students ought to demonstrate having gone through the syllabus of CSEC or CAPE. That being satisfied, we then look at the most efficient way to do this, given that we have already lost time. We have already, certainly at this point, the May and June examinations are no longer possible, and we would have put on the table July. But even at this moment, July is seeming very uncertain given the prolonged condition of COVID-19 on the region. So we have also outlined a schedule: June, July, August, September, and even up to December. Now, up to December of this year, our intervention would be the modified approach that we have proposed, if at all we are offering the exams. And perhaps I shouldn't even say up to December, because there's a certain time beyond which the offering of such examination would not necessarily be viable. From now, to answer your question directly, until about October or November, the examinations will be offered in the modality we have articulated to date, which is the multiple choice paper, the SBA, and of course, combining those to award valid grades to students, all being augmented by our historical data, teacher information, predicted information, being used as important quality assurance check to ensure that we are fair and unbiased to students, and to ensure that the grades we are giving are actually valid grades that can stand up to scrutiny, and in so doing, protect the integrity of the examinations.
Yeah. Okay, given that you said that, there is a document circulating that suggests CXC released a draft timetable for the June-July exams. Is this authentic?
Well, I can't necessarily speak to the document to which you refer, because I'm not seeing that document, but just to say that CXC did circulate a timetable to the local registrars. As you would imagine, this will have to be a consultative process, and we have circulated that document to the local registrar to get feedback as to the feasibility of those dates that would have been suggested. In fact, that July date is now being augmented with a possible August sitting and a possible September sitting, and when the results would be available after that. So from the standpoint of us circulating a timetable, we would have done so to the local registrars, and perhaps the local registrars are doing their own due diligence locally, and that's a timetable that persons would be reviewing at this time to give us feedback.
All right. So the third question, how will CXC deal with subjects such as human and social biology, modern languages? Of two of those I do, French and Spanish, and as well as visual arts. So is it going to be just the multiple choice and the SBA, or maybe all papers, or just the paper 2 and SBA?
So I'm happy that you really do have emotional support at home, having indicated that now you're going to be doing two of the modern languages that we have indicated. And those two will actually see all the additional components being offered. So you will still be exposed to your paper 2, your paper 1, and all the other profiles that you will have to do. And why was this necessary? This was necessary because in trying to award valid grades to students, we are ensuring that we focus on the skills and competencies necessary to demonstrate that you would have acquired the knowledge of these subjects. And so in awarding those grades, we would look at the skills, the competencies, the profile that are required, and see, can we get that from the multiple choice paper and the SBA? And for those subjects for which it is difficult to make those determination, we would have included additional components for those students to sit, just as the human and social biology, the modern languages, as well as visual arts. So those students will be expected to continue to write their paper 2 or submit, in the case of visual arts, their particular, what you call, journals that they would be maintaining throughout the year for us to be able to assess those critical skills and competencies.
Okay, so I have a statement and it follows up with 3 questions. So do you want me to read the statement and all 3 questions at once, or piece by piece?
Well, you could read the statement and let me understand the context within which you are posing the questions, and then you can take them, read them all, and then I can answer them one at a time. If I can't recall all, I'll ask you to repeat. Now that I'm being tested and quizzed by a CXC student. Huh?
Okay, so many students, particularly those doing Unit 2 CAPE, have a concern about the absence of the structured paper. So these are the fundamental concerns. Is the multiple choice and the SBA a true reflection of any given student's intellect? Will more students be getting grade 1s this year, and how will this affect the competition for government scholarships? And lastly, seeing that the multiple choice usually has repeated or similar questions, is there any plan to reset the paper 1s?
Okay, so very important questions and concerns indeed. I'll start with the very last question. Will there be a need to rewrite the paper? We will not be rewriting any of our papers that are set for this year's examinations. Those papers will continue to be administered in the form in the format in which they were already created and designed. So those exams are already printed. Those exams are already available. So we will not go into any kind of modification. One of the things that is important to point out here is that we pride ourselves in the standard at which we set our examinations and the various skills and competencies that we are looking for. And as I indicated in your previous question, is that where we have a challenge making a valid and fair assessment of those competencies by students, then we will incorporate other strategies such as the additional components that I have outlined earlier. Where we are sufficiently satisfied that the skills and competencies, and notice I'm focusing on skills and competencies and not necessarily on content, so to speak. While content is important and you would have covered those content, it is your ability to demonstrate your mastery and the skills required in utilizing those knowledge is what we are focusing on. And where we are sufficiently confident that that is being done, then there won't be the administration of a paper 2. And that aids us with several other things as I indicated earlier. In respect of the first question, and that speaks to, remind me again, the first question?
Is the paper one, the multiple choice, and the SBA mark a true reflection of any given
Okay.
student's
Right,
intellect?
and I would have addressed that. Yes, it is a few, as I
Yeah.
said, I'm focusing on the skills and competencies. And so
Yeah.
this is will be a true reflection of the students' ability or mastery of the subject. The next question you asked was whether or not you will have a proliferation of grade ones and grade, all that,
Yeah.
and the competition that now exists for scholarship. And I'm quite
Interesting.
sure that you will be one of the scholarship recipient, Faith. I mean, I have all faith and confidence with the kind of support that is around you. But obviously, that is why we are looking at an objective approach to awarding valid grades. And we are taking the SBA, and all the SBAs will be 100% moderated, all centers across the region. So all the SBAs will have to be submitted, they will be moderated. So we are doing an extensive moderation exercise right now with the continued rigor of our quality assurance mechanism to ensure that the best results are put forward. We are quite aware of the concerns about whether or not teachers are being very overly generous with their grading or very conservative with their grading. And so we have to make sure that this moderation process really reflects the students' ability right across the region without disenfranchising any or disadvantaging any of the candidates. Now, with that approach and looking at our modeling activities and how we go about determining the grades awarded to students, we expect that their similar profile will exist as in previous years, given all the mechanism and systems that we are putting in place to ensure that we get a reflection of the students' ability. It's amazing, and I just want to take this opportunity to bring the point about the diametrically opposing views, because some persons in the region are arguing for a full administration of the exam, some are arguing for the full cancellation of the exams and still award grades, and some are appreciative of the approach that we would have outlined to have some objective measure to ensure that we are able to award valid grades to students. So I don't expect necessarily the proliferation of grade ones or grade two or failures or whatever. We expect that this will continue to at least be reflective of what obtains year over year. And that is why we're giving the multiple choice paper. One of the reasons here is that for an examination body like CXC, where we are offering assessment across countries, as well as within schools and across years for the varying administration of the examination, it is important that we have that common measure. And in this case, the multiple choice is seen as a reliable tool to facilitate that.
For CSEC, sorry, and CAPE students, we spent 1 or 2 years learning a book, a play, and poems. Now, the thing is, those usually do not appear on the paper one. So the question was previously going to be, is it that that paper for literature is going to be reset, or is it just going to be the regular paper one?
Yes, it's going to be the multiple choice paper that is set for literature. Again, if we focus on the skills and competencies that students ought to display, then if whatever book you read, whatever content you would have acquired from those books, you can demonstrate the skills in talking about the plot or talking about whatever aspect of that play in different ways. And some of that will come out in your SBA, some of that will come out in your multiple choice paper. And so what you would have lost, and remember now that this is an unprecedented situation. We are facing with an unprecedented time. Not all things that were happening as normal will continue. There will be some loss of content because we are not covering all, but what is critical is that anyone who possessed or should receive a grade 1 or a grade 2, it is reflective of the competencies and skills that they would have demonstrated. Synthesis, analysis, comprehension, knowledge, all of those skills are critical for you, because when you get out there in the world of work, you will not necessarily be utilizing those books and poetry. What you will be called upon to demonstrate, you'll be called upon to demonstrate your skills in analyzing information and presenting information in such a way that persons are either convinced or compelled to listen and follow what you are saying. So it is your skills and competencies that are critical at this moment. And of course, having gone through those books, it would have honed and sharpened your skills to be able to master whatever assessment you're asked to participate in.
Okay, I think that's both good and disappointing news.
These are trying times, and it is very difficult, as I said, to balance the diametrically opposing views to come to a consensus across the region. I was just in a meeting yesterday with a member state. Already they have declared themselves free from COVID and is now wondering, when can our students just move back into this exam preparation mode now for them to, and I said, well, I have the region to think about as well. So I'm happy that you are COVID free and you're moving forward, but now we have to try to find a common place for all to be able to do the examinations. One thing I want to point out for those of persons who might be or will be tuned into this program, while we have issued that the e-modality is the preferred modality of choice, we would not do anything that will disadvantage any student. So both the e-modality and the paper-based modality will be utilized to ensure that all students get a fair chance of demonstrating their skills and competencies. And we want to make sure that the process is as objective as possible and remove as much as we can accommodate any subjectivity to the award of valid grades this year. And we have to do that to protect the integrity of the examination process. Students are looking to move on to universities. Students are looking to seek employment. Students are looking to move on to upper six. Students are looking to move on to community colleges. How will we facilitate that going forward, knowing that come September is a new reality that will confront us?
Okay,
well, I wish you all the best with your preparation, Faith. And I'm quite sure your mother, being as supportive as she is, you will do well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Well, the final question from me, how will e-testing be conducted given that many individuals and schools do not have sufficient technology to engage in this?
All right, so e-testing will only be administered where the technology is available and schools are actually ready to take this on. Where schools are not ready, we will offer the paper-based modality to those institutions to ensure students are still comfortable in writing their examinations. To date, at the Caribbean Examination Council, we would have launched or put in place our Learning Hub, which is learninghub.cxc.org, which allows students to go on and get a feel for what the online environment would be like. There are sample e-testing papers on there that persons can actually practice. You won't necessarily get answers to the questions, but you will be able to practice those sample papers that are there. Teachers would have been utilizing it, but we are very much aware that the infrastructure challenges would have prevented others from benefiting from those exposure. And so we will still have to maintain a paper-based approach to our examination administration to ensure everyone does get the opportunity to write their examinations.
Okay.
So thanks for that, Faith, and thanks for that, Dr. Wesley. Dr. Wesley, I can't help but be aware and notice that throughout the conversation, you kept returning to the whole question of the kind of emotional support that is needed to be provided to students at this point in time. So I wanted to create this space for Talia as a mother to share with us what she has been doing to provide that kind of emotional support that Faith would need to ensure that the transition inside of a COVID pandemic reality so that's during COVID-19 and the transition post COVID-19 to continue with her educational success. What have you been doing, Talia, to provide that emotional support and structure and stability for Faith at this point in time?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Bristol and Dr. Wesley, CXC, for really listening and giving the voice and an opportunity to speak. Faith, like many other CSEC and SCIP students I'm sure of, are experiencing a lot of anxieties. I am sure I've seen her here just sort of pulling out very slowly. She's been pacing the house and very realistically and plainly speaking, she's been trying to adjust with the uncertainties around whether CXC is going to be in June or July or August or September or even January. And a lot of it has been complicated by, you know, circulating information that may not or may necessarily come from CXC. So it's a lot of the juggling the information, juggling the uncertainty, juggling the lack of structure. And that creates a sense, a little bit of a chaos, but it's important for us as parents, both myself and my husband, her father, who, her mom, her grandmom, they've all been very supportive to her. And I think we try to constantly remind her that there's no structure, but there's an opportunity. And I said to her just recently, yes, there's no CXC exam taking place, but you have a blessing right now. You have the blessing of being home with your mom and your dad and your siblings, of being loved a little extra, being taken care of more than usual, but of the blessing of spending a particular period at a very chaotic time with persons who love you and, to be quite honest, have your best interests at heart. So rest assured, you have a platform at least to stand firm on. That's first and foremost. And coming out of that is an understanding that trust in CXC. We have persons who are experts in what they do. We have persons who are very well aware of the process. And I tell her that, and I speak both from the perspective of a mother, but also an educator. I am a higher education lecturer, and I deal with the issues continuously, and I know that there's a lot of questions around, should we cancel or should we not cancel? And I said, they are aware of those issues, and they're taking all of that into consideration. So trust in that process, and trust that the persons who are engaged in that process are taking all of those considerations into place and making a decision that best, you know, is able to address the multiple issues that they are confronted with and the concerns that are coming from different stakeholders in the process. So Faith is aware of that. And I believe she has, I always tell her, her name has power in it. So she has that. So she has to trust in the process, trust in the higher being, but also recognize that this is not an ad hoc process taking place, and that there are many processes and considerations that all filter into making a decision that will best address the complexity of what is before us. And apart from that, we enjoy each other. And I say to her constantly, I said, there's no expectation for you to over prepare right now, because for one, we don't know when CX is going to take place. So you pace yourself. But in the process of pacing yourself, you enjoy the life right now and the blessings of your space. So we have barbecues every other Friday night. We watch
I need to come to Trinidad.
We watch a movie together. And sometimes I would say to her, "Are you going to do work this evening?" So I remind her every now and then of creating that space too, where she could go back to the work and touch base with what she's doing and where she's at. So she never gets lost in the process of preparing. But I don't want to overburden her either, or over-preparing, given the uncertainty of when the examination will be actually held. So it's a matter of balance, but it's also treating with something from a position of trust and comfort and support.
Thanks for that, Talia. And of course, thanks, Wayne, as well, for sharing that information with us. I think it's important that we keep our students at the forefront of all the decisions that we will make in a COVID-19 pandemic, particularly as we consider the impact on education. Now, we have been spending a lot of time on the conversation as it relates to how do we conduct regional assessment and regional examinations in this reality when there are significant inequities in the education system, significant inequities in the ways in which a number of our students come into contact with education. So I will take your last word, Talia, as trust in the system, trust in CXC, trust in our ministries of education to keep all the complexities in mind as we together consider a coordinated response to COVID-19 and education. So colleagues, Wayne, Talia, listeners out there, thank you everybody for joining us at this point in time. And I hope
It was
that
my
we have
pleasure.
some information to
Yes.
consider.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.